you for attending today's web session. I'm so happy to have with us Marianne again, who's one of our Avid Master instructors. Hope that music got you going on a good Tuesday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're ringing in from. So go ahead and let us know in the questions field or on social where you're watching us from. I see we got people from Dubai in the UK. That's awesome. We're so glad to have you today. Have someone from the Bronx, so shout out to everyone in New York. As you know, your audio is muted and you can ask questions by entering them in the fields, and we will get those answered by Marianne as quickly as we can at the end of the session. The recorded session will be posted back to avid.com. And also raise your hand if you're using the Zoom account, if you're having an issue, and I will come to you and try to resolve that issue for you. So Marianne has a lot to cover today in split screen. So I'm going to go ahead and very quickly hand this over to Marianne to go ahead and get started. So go ahead, Marianne. We'll hand this over to you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for attending, and hope all is well. So as Dawn mentioned, I am going to be covering split screen today. Those effects that allow us to see images simultaneously on the screen. And just to give you guys a heads up, I'm going to be working off a MacBook Pro running Catalina and Media Composer 2020.6. So if you've been a little nervous about working with Catalina, no need. I've been working with it for a couple weeks now, and it's been great. So you guys will get a chance for that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and also encourage you guys to ask questions just in case I might have a human moment, skip a step, or part of a concept. You guys are really good at asking questions and filling in those gaps. And here we go. Sharing my desktop. So you guys should see now Media Composer with a couple of split screen examples on the Composer window. And hopefully you can see the magenta pink highlight around my cursor so you can follow me along in addition to my audio cues. So when I think of traditional split screen, I think of the image on the left, the classic phone call. Of course, we use split screens in other ways, like the image on the right, either simultaneous action in cinema, or in this case, it's going to be a highlight reel for sports. So simultaneous action, multiple locations, but regardless, multiple images at the same time, and the process is going to be the same. Also now the very trendy simulating gallery view of webinars like Zoom and that kind of thing. Our client today is a parkour group from Tennessee, and they want us to create what I'm about to preview so you can get an idea of where we're headed and for the kind of urban stunts that parkour artists engage in. So I'm just going to play this sequence. I'm going to go into full screen mode here. I just hit Shift Command F to get into full screen, and here we go. And I am muted.
Go! PremiumBeat.com. PremiumBeat.com.
Okay, so there we go. So we're going to be creating a split screen at the beginning of our sequence and at the end. That's what our client would like us to do. So I set up two demos. One's going to be kind of the nuts and bolts demo for those of you who are just getting comfortable with the Media Composer interface, and for anybody who's kind of new to effects in Media Composer. And then I'm going to give a lot of efficiency tips and do an animation at the end. Time is of the essence, so this is going to be pretty quick, but we are recording, so you'll be able to play this back later. And again, ask questions. So I've also set up my Media Composer to essentially default layouts. I'm in the edit workspace, just so hopefully this will look familiar to new users, or if you're a seasoned user, haven't deviated much from the defaults. Obviously, you'll set up your system the way you're normally comfortable. So here's a rough cut. So I'm in my bin container and my sequences bin. I just double clicked to rough cut, which is just the montage you saw without any split screens. Okay. And so we're going to add a split screen to the first shot. So first of all, stacking order. Stacking order in a split screen situation is just like in life. I have a laptop sitting on a box because it's Zoom and it's not a Zoom session without books or a box on top of the table. So my laptop is covering the box, which is covering part of a table. So whatever is going to end up on a higher track in Media Composer is going to cover up what's below. Well, we only have one track, so I need to add a track. So for a nuts and bolts demonstration, I'm just going to right click in my timeline window and I get the option to add new, and I'm going to add video track. There we go. Okay, now I need a source clip. As cute as the baby and the guy on the phone is, that's not our source shot. So I'm going to go to my split screen selects, which I did all the pre-work for this, picking out the shots and the portion of the shots that I'm going to be using today, so we can focus on split screens. So the first one is going to be these guys walking across the street, and that's going to go on the left side of the screen. So that needs to go on this new video track I just created. So we need to do what's called patching, and also selecting the portion of the shot where this is going to cover in the timeline. Well, it's going to be the exact same duration as the clip on V1. Okay, so quick tip, I can just deactivate V2 and then click mark clip or T on my keyboard to mark the clip on V1. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, now if I overwrite right now, I'm going to replace the shot that's there. So I got to tell Media Composer, don't overwrite what I have, put this on V2, and that is patching. And Media Composer has made this easy by default incorporating auto patching. So if I actually activate V2, deactivate V1, and I'm working on the timeline side, the blue side, the right side, the source left V1 lines itself up next to V2. That's how you know. They have to be lined up next to each other. It can't just be selected. All right. And then I'm going to hit overwrite. When I'm compositing and a split screen is a composite, I tend to use overwrite because I might have images clips downstream to the right, and I don't want those to move. So overwrite's the safe one. And there we go. Okay, now if I park my playhead over this stack, I still see the background image, and that's because of monitoring. So I have these monitors on the left that I'm pointing to, and right now we're monitoring V1. If I monitor V2, the guys walking across the street now are fully covering V1, okay? So stacking order. Okay, so then my effect's gonna go on V2. So if I click on my effects palette on the left here, we will see that we have lots of categories on the right, or my other right on the left, and then what's in those categories. So for our split screen, we're going to focus on picture-in-picture style effects, although you can use things in the edge wipe category. It takes a little bit more setup, but you can do edge wipes, do diagonals, and other types of split screen shapes as well. In the blend category, we have the 2D picture-in-picture, which if you're starting out, this is a great place to start. We have 3D warp, which has like every effects parameter you could possibly want. And then we have the little bit size down express 3D effect, which is the 3D picture-in-picture, which is what I'm going to use today, just in case my client says, hey, can you rotate that a bit? If I use the 2D version in the blend category now, as I use the 3D picture-in-picture, I'm set. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm just dragging and dropping it to V2. And you'll automatically see a change in the right monitor. This is about half screen. Okay, so to give us a little bit more real estate space so you can see a little better, I'm going to go into the effects workspace. Okay, and when I do that, that opens up my sequences bin. I'm just going to minimize. You can dock this elsewhere. Okay, minimizing tends to work. And now because I'm on a single monitor right now, I get one effects preview. No longer have a source monitor. Effects editor to the left of that, and then my effects palette to add other effects. Okay, so 3D picture-in-picture automatically scales. So we can see I have a scale parameter open here and other parameters. If you find this overwhelming, a quick way to close everything up is we have these reveal triangles. Hold down your Option key, Alt on Windows, click on one of those open triangles, closed, and then I can go and open up scale. you can see scale is green and the rest of them are not. That's the one that's enabled. In fact, if I turn off scale, full screen image, I've just disabled it. Okay, so you can see what's going on and troubleshoot later, because I feel like 80% of effects work is troubleshooting, at least for me. Okay, so I'm going to open up the scale parameter because we actually want this to be a full screen image. And I'm just going to click on the slider and I can drag, or on my number keypad, type in a value 100, return, enter, and we've got 100%. Okay, 100% full screen, above is bigger, and below 100% smaller. Okay, now I want to crop these guys, so and reposition them. So I am going to open up the crop parameter. Okay, and this is going to be pretty rough due to limited time. And I'm just going to left crop. There we go. Those are my focus. Right crop. Okay, I'm using the effects editor. I'm not great at this because I tend to directly manipulate, use all the handles and stuff in the effects preview window, but I want to make sure you guys have the nuts and bolts here. Okay, so I've got this cropped, and then I'm going to open up the position parameter and horizontal position. Over to the left. That's rotation, if I can read. Let's try position. There we go. I just did a Command Z. I do that a lot. Control Z on window, editor's best friend. And then I'm going to start moving this over. Now, as I get closer and these make big jumps, I can just hold down my Shift key. Okay. Okay. And then there we go. Okay. And then if I want a border, there's a border parameter, and I'm just going to open up the width. By default, it's black. And it does go all the way around the image. Yeah, if you don't want that, you're going to want to use like a horizontal edge wipe in the edge wipe category here that I'm pointing at. It's going to take a little bit more work. It's going to involve some nesting and that kind of thing that we don't have time for today. But just a heads up that if you are seasoned with effects work, you can do some nesting and use that. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this up a bit. Okay, and then we can see that this has disappeared at the top and bottom because it scaled the border as well. If I want to change color, I can click on the color swatch and sample from the screen, so I can make it a nice skin tone, or I can double click and use the Media Composer color picker. And there we go. So we've got our first split screen ready for review by our client. Okay, nuts and bolts. We added a track, selected our shots, patched, and marked in our timeline, added the 3D picture in picture, okay, and then made some adjustments. All right, so our second stack here, I'm gonna make my way towards the end, is gonna have 3 images. So we need to edit those 3 clips. So I'm gonna go back to the edit view. And I did all the pre-work, so I've got some information. I used the comments column to do this. So we've got our V1, which is going to be our background, and then we're going to have 2 images stacked on top of each other on the left side, and then 1 vertical on the right side. Okay, in fact, if I just go back to my final, there we go. So that's where we're headed. All right, and I'm just using the menu here to switch between my 2 sequences. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to add on is going to be to V2, which is the right side. I've got my source mark. I want my timeline mark. Notice I'm patched V1 to V2 already. So if I actually hit mark clip, because again, this is going to be a perfect stack, all of them starting at and ending at the same time. When I hit mark clip, it selects the whole track. Okay, power tip number 1. Option mark clip, or option T. Alt on Windows, don't want to leave you guys behind. There we go. And what it does is it marks the nearest edit. Okay. Now, if they're happening, the clips are coming in at different times, you just use your I and your O like normal. Mark in, mark out. But a quick way to mark clip without having to change the patching is to option Alt mark clip, or option Alt T, and the default. Okay. Audio is off on the record side so that I don't have to keep worrying about it, because I don't want to wipe out my audio. So I'm going to go ahead and overwrite, and there we go. Now I need 2 more tracks for the other 2 images that are going to go above. Again, stacking order, background's on V1, and then everything else goes on V2, V3, V4. Command Y, Control Y on Windows. I'm going to hit that twice. There we go. So if you're going for efficiency, you don't have to right click. Okay. If you're going for survival, you'll be hunting around looking for everything. We all started somewhere. Okay. Next shot is going to be this kind of balance beam on the edge of a very high wall. So I'm going to Option T, Alt T on Windows. V4 is active. There's nothing there, so I'm not going to worry about it. And then I'm going to overwrite, or B on the keyboard. Okay. So we've got that. Don't see the monitor because the monitor is off. So on the left side, you'll see these monitors that will turn on and off that you can, so you see everything. So don't worry if you're seeing your layer but not seeing it in the record monitor. Okay, final shots is going to be upper left. There we go. And then I'm going to Option T in the time. Oops, I need to undo. There we go. Or I'm going to lose my spot. Option T or Alt T. And then I'm going to deselect V3 and it auto patch to V4. You can map all your tracks to your keyboard, so then you can just be keyboard clicking all of these. I don't have that set up because I'm working with the default settings today. Okay, so there's my images. So V4 is covering up V3, V3 is covering up V2, and V2 is covering up V1, just like life with my laptop, box, table, floor. Okay. So now I'm going to set up the 3D picture-in-picture. So I'm going to go into the effects layout. Again, minimize this or dock it. And then if you're in effects mode, you can actually just click your layer and then double-click the effect. Okay, so there we go. This one's going to be more direct manipulation, so you guys can see that. Plus, I'm more comfortable with that, you'll see. But I do want my scale to be 100 rather than typing it. If you just want to get things back to the default, Option, Alt on Windows, click the Enable button, and I just reset this. So if you want to reset to the factory defaults, not the 3D picture-in-picture default, it's Option. Okay, so it defaults to 100. So I have a crop tool selected because I was playing around with this earlier. On the right side, hopefully you guys can see this with my cursor highlight, you're going to see a series of tools to directly manipulate in your effects preview window. You're going to want to use these tools. Right now I'm on scaling. If I hit the top tool, crop, it'll even tell me now I'm working with crop. So then I'm going to go ahead and grab these corners and crop in. I need this to take up a little less than a third of the screen, only because I've kind of storyboarded this, mapped this out earlier, so I kind of know. Now, as soon as I direct manipulate, it automatically adds a keyframe. That does not happen when you use the effects editor. Power tip, because I want to be able to scrub around and I don't want to end up with all these random keyframes, which can lead to troubleshooting, more troubleshooting than I'm used to. I make a change and then I hit delete. Okay, and then that way I can keep making changes and then just hit my delete. Okay, so I've got this kind of set up on that side. Got that keyframe. So I'm doing a staging. I think of the initial phase of building any composite as being like on stage crew in a theater. They move in all the set pieces and props, get that all staged, and then they figure out how it's gonna come in, okay, by taking everything off. That's how I build effects. It saves time and energy, and then you can see everything in relationship to each other. So right now I'm staging. I do kind of want to scrub to see how my cropping is. Not perfect, but not terrible either. Okay, one thing I don't want is I want to see the background guys as much as possible. I'm just going to tweak this just a little bit. Okay, it's the initial phase, so I'll worry about perfection later, but that should be pretty good. I just deleted my keyframe. So there we go. Right side. The beginning is not going to matter. He's actually going to be off screen. But we got the main action, and I can still see the action below. So that's where I spend most of my time, which is why I want to be really, really efficient with the build so that I can focus more on getting the perfect framing as opposed to turning on and off things and recreating things and double work. Okay, next image. So I'm going to go ahead and monitor V3. So I'm on the left side of my timeline now, this balance beam. And apply 3D picture-in-picture. The shot is selected. You can see it kind of highlighted in pink here, or purple. And then 3D picture-in-picture, it's going to be 50%. This one's actually going to stay 50%. It's going to take the lower half of the screen kind of as a third. So I don't want a wide screen for this. I actually want it to be a little bit cropped. So all I have to do for this one is crop it a bit to get that. Okay, and I'm just totally eyeballing. I tend to build my stuff super fast and then troubleshoot later. Okay, so that's probably a little heavy-handed, but let's go. I'm going to delete my keyframe here, delete on my keyboard, scrub through. Okay, that's pretty good. It's hard to fight perfectionism in a webinar. There we go. Okay, so then I am going to add the border, and I forgot the border on the last layer, but we'll get there. There we go. And I'm going to make it white. All right. And I'm going to come down here to this one and do the same thing. So I just clicked on the timeline layer to activate it, and then I'm making the change. So I tend to activate things at the timeline level, and then I do everything else in the record monitor. Effects preview. In fact, scrubbing in the effects preview. So if you've been having issues where every time you click in the timeline, you find yourself out of effects mode, that kind of thing, it's probably because you're using edit workspace and it will take you out instead of effects. Okay. So if you navigate in the effects preview, you'll stay in effects mode and your stuff will stay selected. Okay, little power tip there. So that's going to be my setup for today, fighting perfectionism. Now, the next layer is going to get the same size and border and crop as the bottom layer. So I can template this without having to recreate it, because I know already I'm starting to run out of time. So I can make a template by dragging and dropping this icon I'm pointing out in the upper left corner of my effects editor to the bin, or I can actually, if it's going to be used multiple times, or I can click and drag and drop this to a layer in the timeline and it just applied it. So now V4 and V3 have the same thing. And all I have to do for my V4, because the action's conveniently in the screen, is move this up. So I'm just going to hold down my Shift key and drag this up and hopefully get it. My zoom controls are totally covering a portion of this monitor. It's hard to figure out where to put it. Okay, so there we go, we're staged. All right, with some tips. So Command Control Y to add a track, add your effects, directly manipulate, delete those keyframes, because I'm pretty sure I did not delete the extra one on this layer. And there we go. Okay, so keyframing. You just want to kind of time this out and plan it. So one tip I always do is I always try to use even time numbers. Okay, so like right now I'm at 1 second into this clip, this top clip. How do I know that? Over on the right side, 1 second duration, or 1 second position, that's where I'm at. And then it's a 5 second, 16 frame clip. So what's going to happen is this clip is going to slide in from the bottom and up. Okay, so that's got the most work. So I'm going to stage that out. And then these guys are going to come in together, the lower left and the right side together at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to make this about a 1 second and 20 frame effect. And then if I need to fix the timing later, I do. But by evening out my numbers, it's easier for me to remember. So all of them are going to land at this moment in time. And because they're all going to land at this moment in time, I'm going to add a keyframe at this moment in time. Thinking back to the staging, being on stage crew in the theater, we've got everything marked. Here's where we are. And then we're going to figure out how it's going to come in. So I'm going to add a keyframe for each layer. Add a keyframe. Come down here. Not quite at 120. Yes, it is kind of important in this effect to be at that spot. Okay. And then this one, same thing. Okay. To make sure you're at that spot, add a keyframe. So I've got the landing keyframe. Now back to the fountain shot. It's going to take him 20 frames to get here. So I'm going to go back to about 1 second. Okay. So, and then I'm just going to hold down my shift key to constrain vertically. Shift, then click and drag. Especially if you're coming from another software, it's probably the opposite. Okay. And there we go. We've got that animation. Keyframe starts and ends of change. We're telling where we want the animation to start, where it's going to end, and then Media Composer figures out the rest for us as our assistant. Okay. Now he's going to slide in from the left, okay, over 20 frames. Now I have to tell the system that it's going to end at frame 20. Starts and ends have changed, pairs of keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and add a keyframe by using the Add Keyframe button. Okay. So now it's going to hold. And then at the beginning, I'll take this off screen. Now to get access to off screen better, I'm going to zoom out. Command K, Control K on Windows, or magnifying glass. Hold down my shift key, drag this off. Okay. Shift key constrains it. There we go. Okay, so now this layer is coming in and then holding and sliding up. So that hold, there's the key, keyframes and pairs. Okay, so now that means the timing, because the other two are going to come in while this one's moving up. 1 second to 120, quick, easy keyframe change, and then we'll take some questions. So I'm going to go down to V3. By the way, if you want to just solo a track, so that's all you see, Command, Control on Windows, click the monitor. So now I'm just seeing this shot. And I've already got the 120 because of pre-work that we did together. And now I'm just going to hold down my shift key, take this off screen. Okay. And then this one's going to go. And then my last layer, my watch was telling me I'm out of time, but we're going to ignore that. Last layer, I'm going to command click a second. Last thing. And then again, we already had our positioning. It's going to come on at over a course of 1 second. And then I'm just going to hold on my shift key and drag. Notice it auto adds a keyframe because I'm doing direct manipulation. It does not auto add keyframes if you're working over in the effects editor. You'll want to manually add those. All right, so then I'm just going to monitor everything. And let's see what we've got. I'm going to mute myself because the music doesn't matter right now. And voila, split screen, stacking order. And then some keyframe with some animation. It was all done with 3D picture in picture. All right. So with that, I can take some questions.
Marianne, that was amazing. You fit all that in that little time frame. So for squeezing all that in. So that was awesome. So we'll give everybody just a moment here to type in any questions that they may have. I am trying to monitor some of the social feeds, so you can enter questions there as well, and I'll get those over to Marianne. I think a lot of people are going to go back and take a look at the video. We had a lot of thumbs up on deleting the keyframe trick there, so I think a lot of people enjoyed that little tip that you threw out, and something with the resizing as well. So you had a lot of thumbs up in that area. We'll give everybody just another minute to see if there's any questions. Why I'm giving them that chance, let me go ahead and show them the web sessions that are coming up. So let me go ahead and share what we've got coming up this week and next week. Let's see, hopefully y'all are seeing my screen there. We have, is it popping up? Maybe, there it goes. Oh, it went to the wrong screen. Sorry about that. So we have, if it goes, there it goes. We have Dolby coming up this Thursday. So we're excited to have that one with Adobe, and also with Dolby next week with Avid Play. So some big sessions that are coming up in the near future as well. If you do have questions about this webinar or questions for Marianne, feel free to drop them to me at liveonlinelearning@avid.com, and I'll make sure we get those over and get those answered for you. Also, check out any of the other webinars we have posted, avid.com, /online learning webinars. This is where you can also go to see the replays. So let us know what you want to see. If there's any questions, we're here to help out. So Marianne, thank you again for an amazing, amazing session, and you fit it in perfectly timing wise. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye. See you later.